All right, let's talk about understanding the Journeyman exam. Now, I'm basically giving you the information that I know from when I took the exam and what I understand to be the case for pretty much across the board. Now, depending on what state you live in, things might be a little bit different. Some states, the Journeyman exam isn't something that's required of someone until they have an electrical contractor's license. In other states, the exam may be independent by city. So if you live in a particular city, you take the exam for that city. Where I live, the state that I live in, it is a statewide exam. So we're good for the entire state, and my state reciprocates licensing with about 16 other states. So I'm giving you essentially the information that I know for my state. It may apply to your state. You'll have to do all your local regulations as well. But either way, what you're going to get out of this course is a much better grasp of the National Electric Code than you had or have right now. So, with that in mind, let's talk about the actual test itself. The Journeyman test is 60 questions. In that 60 questions, you have 3 hours to take the test. So that means you've got 180 minutes to answer 60 questions. So that means you have 3 minutes per question. Now that seems like not a lot of time, but the reality is that in that time frame, if you're consistent and you're moving along at a steady pace, you will be able to look up every single answer in the code book, or you'll have time for every question to look up what you hope is the correct answer. So the key is being able to decipher the question so that you can shoot straight to the relevant part of the code book to get the best answer. That's what we're after here. So you've got 60 questions, you've got 30 minutes. When I took my Journeyman's test and my Master's test, they were both open book. The reality is that when you're out in the field, when you're there at that building and you're doing the work and you have a question about what the code requires because you're talking to an inspector or you're talking to an apprentice, or even if you're talking to your boss, you should have a code book in your hand. You should have one. It's something that you should be able to reference anytime you have a question about how something should be done. You have to be able to grab a code book and look it up. The code book is big. There's a lot in it. There is no way you're going to have this thing memorized to where you know exactly every detail in it. It is there as a reference. So that means you should have it accessible when you're on the job site. If you have a question, you go look it up. When you're taking the Journeyman exam, it is open book. You can look it up. So the key is not that you know everything in the code book. The key is do you have the skills to find the answer in the code book by extracting out of the question the information it actually wants to know. Now, questions are multiple choice. So the test that I took was one question, 4 possible answers, and that's the way it operates. You may have to do some calculations in your Journeyman test, so be aware of that. We will go over Ohm's law. We will go over some standard calculations that you will need to know if a question comes up. When I took my Journeyman test, I had to hand my book to the guy in charge of the testing center. He flipped through it, saw that I had notes written in it, gave me a pencil and said, erase all your notes and all these blank pages in the back that you've written calculations in, rip them all out. So all of a sudden now I'm left with no calculation formulas. I had to erase little notes I made here and there in the code book, and I'm thinking, oh great, I'm going in here partially blind. So that was my that was my introduction to taking the National Electric exam, is that I had to pull all my notes out of the code book. But did I pass it? Yes, I still passed it because I knew how to find an answer in the code book. Now that brings us to test taking strategies. At the moment, big one is being time management. You need to be able to be aware that, okay, the clock is ticking. I have an average of 3 minutes per question, so I need to keep moving in order to get through this entire test. So don't get bogged down on one you don't know and spend 10 minutes flipping through the code book trying desperately to find an answer. You're better off skipping that one, move on to the next. If you find you've spent 2.5 minutes trying to find an answer to the question, skip it. Move on to the next. When you take these tests, whether it's on a computer or whether it's on paper, you will be able to go back and review it before you submit it in order to see if you've answered all the questions that you want to answer. So don't waste lots of time trying to find something. If you've spent 2.5 minutes on a question and just can't find the answer, skip it, move on to the next. You're better off having that one missed or potentially be wrong than coming to the end and now you're 10 questions short and you run out of time. So you really don't want to be the one who got to the end and you ran out of time and then you automatically got them wrong because you were never able to answer them. So that being the case, you have to manage your time. They're multiple choice. We'll go over some calculations. It's a 60-question test. It's 3 hours to take and it's open book. So with that in mind, you can go forward now in our course with the knowledge that you will be able to have an awareness of what you're going into on the day.